What is going on, everybody? Thank you all for tuning into this special segment of Mika Says Ukas. And of course, as always, I am your humble host, Niko House. And I know some of y'all might be like rubbing your eyes right now and scratching your fucking head and all that shit. Yeah, you seeing it. It is who you think it is. Me and Mike have made up, everybody. That's right. Mike Figueredo is here with us right now. And we're here to talk about the future of the movement. Before we get into that, how are you doing, Mike? How's life been for you?
I'm doing okay. Hope everything is okay with you. Let me just say, I think that this moment is bigger than when Jay-Z and Nas were united on stage.
Oh, man, that's so true. That's
Maybe
so
I'm
true,
a little,
man.
a little bit...
I agree, man. I mean, we got to be Jay-Z and Nas. We're going to have to accept that, man. We gotta No. It's bigger than that, bro. It's bigger than that. It's bigger. It's when Drake and Chris Brown made up in the music video. That's what this is.
I think so.
That is pretty much that big. It's that big because I don't know. We both got tattoos now. You didn't have tattoos before, but you got a lot of tattoos.
Yeah, I'm almost finished on my
and in
arm.
the right light, you kind of look like Chris Brown.
Do I really?
But without the physical abuse. You look like
I was going to say, thank you. That's a compliment. But then I'm like, wait, I don't know if that is a compliment.
But we are here. We are back, people. And I gotta give my respects to Mike. Mike was the one who reached out to me, and he, asked for us to reach a truth so we can fight for this greater movement that is bigger than any one of us. And so I have to commend him on that. And I wish that more people would be that big of a person, and we can all learn to be that humble. Because I think that, let's be honest, Mike. We do what we do because we always think we're right.
100% of the time. Yeah, it's...
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, like, for me, I think that it's... What we have to realize, all of us in indie media, and I mean, like, every single one of us, is that part of it is, like, we have our own platforms because our opinions are so strong that, it's so important to us that we get our ideas out there, that we created our own platform. So the important thing to remember, I think, is that, like, we're never going to agree on 100% of the things, but I think that it's really important that we could acknowledge our disagreements, acknowledge that we have egos, but at the end of the day, realize that it's still us against the establishment. At the end of the day, we just have to make sure that it doesn't get personal. And I'm sad that it did get a little bit personal for the time being. But I mean, we're all basically doing different things. We agree on policy, we disagree on strategy, but that's okay. Like, you don't have to agree on everything. And that's kind of what I am trying to come to terms with in terms of, like, myself, because it's like, for me, I have such strong convictions and beliefs that anytime somebody else says anything that disagrees with something that I hold really dear to my heart, it's hard for me to reconcile that, because I genuinely, it's hard to understand. So for me, like, I'm trying to understand human beings more and their own psychology and, what it takes to get people to different views, and it's all different, like, life paths. Like, we all got to the moment where we are because we had very different, life paths. And so the best thing you could do is just, try to not be divisive. And, I'm a little disappointed in myself because in 2016, I felt like I was very toxic. I was very, like, angry. I was the angry Bernie bro stereotype. And I kind of did that again, but it's so difficult when so much is at stake. And it's not just for Bernie Sanders supporters. We've all been, like, really, really... we've all been angry. I think there's a lot of angst that's been built up. How could you not be angry? In this moment, it's like, how could you not be? So there's going to be, like, a little bit of vitriol, but at the end of the day, we can put all that aside because it's all of us against the establishment. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. We just have to come together. And I reached out to a lot of people after the primary who I kind of, like, got into beefs with, for lack of a better word. And, not everyone responded, even if I, like, didn't feel like I was in the wrong. Just a matter of, like, trying to just try to be better, like, be a better person, put something into the universe that I want to get back, and it is what it is.
I 100% agree. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, obviously you're a Bernie supporter, hardcore. I supported Bernie, but I endorsed Tulsi on the circuit for Tulsi. But at the end of the day, as much as I like Tulsi, and I'm friends with Tulsi and Bernie, I respect his legacy. All we really have as a movement is each other. right? Whenever we're organizing these events, we're not organizing them with Tulsi and Bernie. Bernie and Tulsi have their own responsibilities as legislators and politicians. However, just because they have their responsibilities doesn't mean that we have to kind of fashion our relationships based off of, you know, a difference in opinion or a difference in strategy on their behalf, right? As long as we have the same goals in mind, as long as we have the same strategies in mind, like, and this is something that I've learned over time. And it's funny because for a long time, I was kind of the opposite of, I was trying, when it comes to neoliberals, I was definitely not that. I was toxic as shit to neoliberals.
Same.
But I also, as moving to Miami kind of gives you a weirdly unique perspective. I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. I live in one of the most liberal cities in the country where all of them are convinced that they are conservative. They're convinced this, okay? They truly believe that socialism and democratic socialism they think that Bernie is extreme left. And you and I both goddamn know that Bernie was a compromise. Yep. So, but when you listen to them talk, they're basing every, precondition and preconceived notion that they have off of something that their grandpa told them. And this is what they were raised to believe. And if they questioned their grandfather, their grandmother, then they would be smacked across the face and their friends would reject them because this is what the environment that they were raised in. So they fashioned their entire ideology almost like a defense mechanism to a degree. So they do everything liberals do, but they consider themselves conservatives. And so to try and understand something like that, you really have to take yourself out of your own shoes and put yourselves in theirs. It's like, damn, if I had to basically tell my uncle to fuck off, you're wrong, and ruin everything that's given for the next 5 years to prove my point, I wonder how convicted I would be at 17, 18 years old. Or if and I went to school with these people 20, 21 years old, how convicted can you be until you get around other people who share a similar thought process and have similar values as you, when you feel a little bit more confident in your point, right? And if they're more welcoming to you and your opinions and even difference of opinions, then you all of a sudden, once again, start to build up that confidence, and then you can stand your ground. But we all kind of got to that point now, but we still have to remember we were all that kid whose parents was telling us, this is how things are. This is what you got to deal with. This is how life fashioned you to be. And you can't pretend like you arrived to be, you can't pretend like you came into this life woke. You can't.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I will say that, like, for me, my political ideology is just in constant flux. It's always evolving. Like, who I am today is different than I was a couple of years ago. And I think you could probably relate to this because we're always like, when we do political commentary, we're kind of like forced. I feel like compelled to constantly like read more, do more research, always try to stay up to date. And I like looking back, like I watched some of my older videos and it was embarrassing. So please nobody do that. Just because I looked like a young, a young beta male.
This is pre-beard, Mike, right?
It's the pre-beard, pre-tattoo days. So now I'm totally a Chad. So I'm no. No, I just I had like this glimmer of hope in my eyes that is now just gone. Like it's been zapped from me. And part of this, I feel like, and I joke, I kind of like went through my own like Dave Rubin political awakening, but instead of selling out and taking Coke money, I like became more extreme in my leftism. And it's hard because it's like I want to try to be like open, and I want, if I can't understand other people, then I want them to at least try to understand my position. But it's hard because as I evolve politically and admittedly probably shift further and further to the left, I think I have shifted to the left a little bit. It's getting more difficult to work with certain people who are neoliberal, who are very loyal to the Democratic Party.
Hard.
It's so hard. So that's why I think that
it's almost damn near hard than working with conservatives sometimes, man. Like, so a Republican and a conservative are two different things to me. Because there's some neoliberal Republicans, like they might as well be. Like Joe Biden, we're going to pretend like he's not conservative or a Republican, basically. He's not conservative. He's an evil fascist neocon Republican. So, but I feel you, man. It's really got. I'm telling you, bro. The rest of the world has to be laughing at us right now because we're in an environment where now we get to choose between the alleged rapists and the alleged rapists with dementia. These are our two options now. How the fuck do we get to this point?
It just goes to show you that the people in power, they have a lot of influence. And it's not just the people in power. Like for me, I'm trying to be introspective and figure out what we did wrong. And I say we as like anyone who's left, anyone who's anti-establishment. This isn't just like the Bernie bros. I'm talking about Tulsi supporters, Yang supporters. We all lost this election. So I'm trying to figure out what was it. And, you know, part of growing is trying to figure out what you could have done better. And I don't believe that we are blameless. I think there's a lot that we can't control, but I'm trying to figure out like what that percentage is. I don't know what the number is, like 20% that we can't control. Of the things that we can control, what do we do going forward? And the answer is, I don't think there's an answer for that yet. But what I think the most important thing to me is hanging on to this energy as long as we can and making sure that this giant movement doesn't die, that it continues on, because I think we really are at this important moment to where we can't continue accepting the status quo. Capitalism is going to kill us all if we don't, you know, aggressively attack. It is exactly. It's already killing us. So it's just a matter of like going forward, I'm going to kind of like ride the wave of the left and try to follow this movement and not be like a leader, but harness it in a way to where we're genuinely doing good. And I think that it's going to take time for us to figure out what's the best step forward. How do we get Medicare for all? How do we end the wars? How do we get a UBI? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what the best course of action is because, you know, we're just exiting. We're still in the fog of war. You know, the dust hasn't settled yet. But whatever we can do, I know that going forward, it has to be a very large movement that does this, because I truly believe that change comes from the bottom up and not the top down. And anyone who's a leader, they're just a vessel for the movement. It's not like I believed in Bernie because of Bernie himself. It really was about the movement for me, because I have fundamental disagreements with Bernie Sanders on things. But it's just a matter of, as people, what do we do? And I don't know, but I'm anxious to find out, you know, where this goes.
And I'm glad you said that. Two important points you made, which is one, we don't know. And anybody who is pretending to have the answers right now, especially, is a goddamn liar. They're misleading you and they're just grifting. That's what they're doing. Nobody has the answer. We are in unprecedented territory, people. This has never happened before. We've had progressive leaders come in and they serve their three, you know, if FDR's case, almost 4 terms, and they exit. And then their energy kind of got sucked out the room immediately by Truman. And then you have JFK, who woke and then obviously abruptly fell asleep. And then you had that weird period of Kucinich's and McGoverns, but they couldn't get the traction that they needed, even though they were 100% right. But now we're in unprecedented territory that now the movement doesn't have an excuse. You have the ability to connect. You have the ability to network. We've been shown the path. A lot of us are probably more affluent when it comes to policy, right? We can articulate our positions better now than we could have ever done before. And we've read and learned and grown more now than our parents and their parents. So like, we are at a point where we have all the tools, we have all the weapons, we even have the leaders and the voices, but we kind of have to, in unison, make a decision to do what we've been doing, which honestly has not worked for either of us, for any of us, or do what you said. How do we get Medicare for all passed? How do we get UBI passed? Not, oh, how do we prop up this person next? Now, if that person does happen to like UBI, okay, let's hear them out. Let's hear what they got to say. Okay, I like that, but here's where you're fucking up, Mr. Politician, sir. You need to get this together and be unapologetic about that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's kind of like how we have to be. These politicians don't shift necessarily out of the goodness of their heart, because at the end of the day, they are ambitious. I don't give a damn if it's the best politician or the worst ones. You don't get to the level of success that it takes to be a congressman or a legislator or a senator by not being ambitious. So their ambitions are always going to try to pull them in another direction, because that's what the establishment plays on. But we have to be stronger than than the establishment when it comes to pulling. And that if they want to be vicious, I mean, I'm not saying we got to be vicious to the point of toxicity, but we have to be as vicious with our convictions. We also have to, truthfully speaking, refine the way we are going about, you know, pushing our convictions to realistically. Yes. But at the same time, we still have to be kind of, once again, unapologetic in challenging these politicians, because I'm a firm believer in what the Black Panthers push, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and the lot. People forget those movements were what I like to call focused but decentralized. Martin Luther King did not kiss a single politician's ass. At the end of the day, LBJ, even though MLK did not like him, guess what he ended up doing? Desegregating the country. And LBJ was a bleeding heart racist. And he did it because MLK and they pushed and got people, and the people, they didn't say, oh, I'm just doing whatever Martin Luther King tells me to do. No, they're like, man, I strongly believe in this. And oh shit, okay, this guy's organizing. Let's go ahead and knock it out. Like, that's what it should be. The politicians should be kissing our asses, not the other way around.
Yeah, that's said perfectly. And I like that you brought that up, because I think that we've kind of had this tendency, and I'm certainly part to blame, to over focus on electoral politics, to where we go from like cycle to cycle towards like, okay, well, we lost 2020. What are we going to do in 2024? When direct action is really, I think it's the way forward. Because here's the thing, and this is one thing that truly worries me, is that Bernie's not going to run again. So there's going to be a vacuum that's going to be left open. And there's going to be a huckster that's going to want to fill it.
Yes.
My guess is Elizabeth Warren is going to want to do that in 2024, yes. Right? So I don't want people to be duped, because as someone who, like, when I was old enough to vote for the first time, I'm sure, because we're the same age, voted for Obama, and I was like, I drank the Kool-Aid. You know what I mean? And I felt duped. So I don't want that to happen again. Like, I don't want there to be like a progressive champion who turns around and betrays everyone. I want people to really recognize the power that they have at the individual level. And it's tough right now, right? Because we're all in quarantine. So we can't leave our houses. We can't organize. But what we have to realize is that this is bigger than a single politician. And it's not just about electoral politics. This really is about organizing. And that's one thing that I think has kind of been motivating my change in politics, to where, I've really embraced democratic socialism, emphasis on the democracy aspect, because people, even in authoritarian regimes, they have power. Look at the Arab Spring and whatnot. Like, around the globe, you can affect change. It's just a matter of, how do you put pressure on the government? What's the best way to do that? And we don't know yet. We genuinely don't know, but it's just a matter of at least getting people to wake up. And I think we've gotten there. Now we have to figure out, going forward, what do we do? How do we get these policies that we all want? And I don't think, like you said, it has to be based on a politician. Like, if we want Medicare for all, let's go demand it in the streets. Like, that's kind of like my thing.
Absolutely. I think that, what's funny, because this coronavirus bailout bill, which is, I don't want to get into that right now.
It's a disaster. Yeah.
It's horrible. But what's funny? They proved they listened to us. And this is how you know how. They threw out that bullshit little $1,200 because they were hearing, oh man, they really do like UBI. And now you had, like, Tulsi said something about it. AOC tweeted something about it. Yang brings it up again on CNN. And people are like, well, shit, we do need some emergency UBI. And so they placated us with this little $1,200. And even though it wasn't enough, it showed, oh, okay, motherfuckers. Oh, so y'all do listen. Y'all do listen. Even if you're going to even if it's only to try and manipulate how we feel about what you're actually trying to push, right? So imagine if you had everyone screaming in unison, and we had these organizations, but like when this whole thing popped off, and this was before the quarantine happened, there is no reason that these separate organizations, DSA, CoPink, and others, the moment that we realized we needed emergency UBI, there should have been a mass movement right then and there. Wouldn't you agree? If that was if Trump had did something else stupid, which is quite often, let's be honest, would there not have been a mass movement against what he did? Absolutely. So whenever it was time to then not necessarily react, right? Not react to something that had been done, but fight for something that we actually need, there was no organizational apparatus to get behind. And I feel like that was very, very, it was indicative of the problem, right? That we have right now. We're always reacting. Why is it that the neoliberal establishment gets so far ahead of us? Why is it that even fucking Trump seemingly can plan ahead of us, and then we get in a position where it's obvious. Let's just go out and demand UBI. I saw whenever they assassinated a Soleimani, oh shit, we can organize in 24 hours. Right? When it was impeachment time, whenever they did the impeachment ceremony, these motherfuckers was out 5 a.m. in the morning. So when it's time to put food on the table, where were all the organizations at? And it's because we couldn't demonize somebody. We couldn't prop up somebody. It was, no, we have to fight for the sake of the fight. And it was nowhere to be found.
Yeah, I think you're kind of speaking to a broader issue with American politics. And like American politics, you know, this isn't the only place where this happens, but our politics is very personality driven. And I think that for people like you and I who have the large platforms, now it's incumbent on us to make that shift from personality politics to policy politics. And it's not like, that's not to say that if you support candidate X, Y, or Z, you aren't substantive, because I do think that, but I think that we've just kind of been conditioned to view our policies through the lens of another politician's eyes. And like you said, we always only react. You know, when a politician comes along to wake us up, we react. Obama, Bernie Sanders. But it's on, like, we should be driving the conversation. And the way that politicians should view us is as that asshole boss or landlord. Like, they should be afraid of us. They should be
public
afraid.
Servant. Not public, you know, coworker, motherfucker. No, it's public servant.
Exactly. Like you are serving because you're there to serve us. Like, you're not there to serve your donors. So we should be demanding, like, the fact that if you look at all, like, name a country that's, you know, developed, all of their stimulus packages or whatever have been much more generous. Look at Canada. Yes. I mean, what we got was basically crumbs, just enough to keep the peasants happy so we don't revolt during a time of a global pandemic. It's insulting.
Bread and circus, man. You got Trump doing these press briefings, and then you got $1,200. Bread and circus, man. That's all it takes. I mean, shit. So frustrating. What's funny is, like, so if you look at Venezuela, for everybody loves to talk shit about Venezuela. I'm like, bro, these motherfuckers they're literally taking groceries to people's homes in the middle of an embargo, and is, you know, being sanctioned like we've really only ever seen happen to Cuba and Iran, maybe. Like, and they're fine in Maduro, because Maduro knows, just like we do, man, if these people think that I'm not doing what they told me to do and making the best of the circumstance on their behalf, I'm done. It don't matter how right, you know, how right I am ideologically. It doesn't matter how much people hate the United States. It won't take the United States to overthrow me. The people will. And we have to start putting that fear of God in the souls of these politicians. That's the only thing that's going to change anything. I think that on everybody's behalf, we edify these politicians for the past 8 years, whether it be Tulsi, Bernie, Warren, AOC, Ilana, I don't give a damn. They all might be very nice people. I know a few of them are nice people. But when you decided to take that little, $150,000, $200,000 a year little paycheck that you get up in Washington, and the retirement benefits that you will get for the rest of your goddamn life, and them healthcare benefits that all of us would love to have. When you decide to take that and you got all those benefits, well, then I hope you got tough skin, because we're about to get in that ass. It's that time. It's about, listen, let me be the first to say, as a friend, Tulsi knows I love her, got all the respect in the world for her. Did not agree with her endorsing Joe Biden. Did not. It was antithetical to everything she ran on. It was antithetical to everything she ran on. And what makes it even worse for Tulsi is that she is an advocate for sexual assault in the military. One of the best. Has legislation upon legislation upon legislation. And she endorsed Joe Biden. Why? Probably because she wanted to save her career. You know, it's not like she went and fought for him and told anybody else to vote for him, but she adhered to a contract based off of what she thought was best within the parameters of the party. And that might be good enough for her. And it, you know, for people who might be in her staff. And once again, do I hold it personally against her? No. But what did we get for that? As like, for me, for you, for your family, for mine, what did we get for her making the best decision for herself? Nothing. It doesn't matter how much I like her as a friend. At the end of the day, we have to challenge these people. We have to, especially if you like them. Especially if you like them. I hold my friends to higher standards than I hold strangers.
Yeah, it's really easy to like put on blinders if you support someone, because you get into this habit to where you try to rationalize everything that they do. But at the end of the day, we do have to acknowledge that these are human beings that we're supporting, and they are making decisions based off of what's best for them. Now today, as we film this, I know this won't go up today, but Bernie endorsed Joe Biden, and it made me literally feel sick to my stomach watching that. because it's
Oh,
like
man.
you see it, and it's really, to me, the rape allegations against Joe Biden I take personally, because I have people in my family who suffered from sexual assault.
Same here.
And there's this tendency to coddle the rapist, for lack of a better word, where you have to pretend like it didn't exist because nobody wants to hear about your story. It's just, it makes me feel nauseous. So to see like Bernie make that endorsement but not bring up the rape, it hurts, and yeah. I know that like maybe that's not his position, but at the end of the day, for me as a human being, like I can't, like it's frustrating. So we have to do what we can within the limitations and acknowledge that the people who we've supported largely, they are working within the confines of the Democratic Party, which it has a way of making people fall in line. These institutions have existed since before we were born. They've been around a very long time.
Oh, and by the way,
powerful.
I think we should acknowledge, Mike, for people who once again want to believe that party politics are the answer. Do you know what's going on in the Green Party right now? Howie Hawkins established the coup. He set up, yeah, man, it's a big thing in the Green Party. He basically, his people are the ones in charge of the Rules and Bylaws Committee. They force people to drop. Ian Schlackman was talking about it. I had Dario Hunter on, who's running for the Green Party ticket. He talked about it briefly as well. But and here's the thing though, it's not like the Green Party is inherently bad. But at the end of the day, are we not all fallible? We're human, like you said, we're human beings. And Howie, in his right mind, with all his Russiagating and fucking hating on Assange, in his right mind, he believes that he's the best thing for the Green Party. So he's gonna do whatever is best in his best interest to get himself elected. And that's no different than the Republican Party, is no different than the Democratic Party. And so at the end of the day, we're left with the responsibility to once again push the movement forward, but let all of these motherfuckers know: Green Party, Libertarian Party, Democratic Party, Republican Party, you work for us. That whatever little goals you have in your life that I want to be a president one day. We don't give a fuck. Don't care. You want to be president? You better come kiss my ass. Listen, you promise me the stars. If I get the moon, I'll be like, okay, go back and try again. That's where we have to be. Listen, I truly believe if Trump supporters actually pushed him more because of his ego, and like he really wants to go down as the next Reagan, it's pretty clear, right? Yeah. Because of his ego, he already advocated for UBI because of this coronavirus. He already's given we're literally going through basically a trial of Medicare for all because of the coronavirus. And a lot of that is because of his supporters making it clear, and the Democrats really just fucking setting him up for success at this point, let's be honest. But when we're at the point where I can trust Trump to move left and not Biden, and you kind of have to, once again, you have to self-reflect and look at human psychology. Well, what is it about Biden? Biden has had everything handed to him. Why the hell should he have to move left? That's how he sees it. Did the Democratic Party make him fight for literally anything? Literally, Bernie it just endorsed him today. Tulsi just endorsed him 2 weeks ago after he was just as silent on her whenever she got caught a Russian asset, and Hillary. He was silent about that. And Bernie endorsed him. What concessions? I mean, you might know more than I do. Did Bernie get some concessions from Joe?
Not that I'm aware of, which is why I'm a little disappointed that he endorsed so soon, because like I feel like once you make an endorsement, all the leverage that you had, it goes out the window. So that's why, like, for me, strategically, I would have been advising Bernie, if I were part of the team, to stay in until the convention.
Well, that's why you wouldn't have been part of the team, Mike.
Come on. Yeah, that's exactly
Clearly, if you put good strategists on your resume, you got it thrown into the garbage dump. That's basically how it seemed like it was.
Yeah, I want to, because you brought up about Trump being pushed left. I don't think it's so much about Trump being pushed left, because I think he's just an idiot, and he's going to play the I'm going to run to the left of Joe Biden game. We all warned Democrats about this during the election. But I did a poll on Twitter, and I asked my followers, given the choice between Joe Biden and Boris Johnson, who would you vote for if those were your only two options? And a majority said Boris Johnson. And it's because that is where our party politics is. That's where the Overton window is in the United States. Because our Democratic Party is technically, I mean, not on all issues, to be fair, to the right of the Tories in the UK. Because one of the number one reasons that I saw in response was that, well, Boris Johnson at least supports national health system. I mean, he wants to privatize and chip away, but the starting point is still going to, like, even if he gets what he wants, it's not going to be as bad as where Biden, it plans for. So it's like we're in this situation to where we see support widespread for progressive policy proposals. We know that everyone wants Medicare for all. People at exit polls showed that they support that.
70%
we know that people want to end
amongst
the wars.
Everybody, and then 90% amongst Democrats, some shit like that.
Yeah, so why don't we have that? Why don't we demand that we get those things that we clearly want? And it's really frustrating. And I'm glad that you brought up the point about the Green Party, because I wasn't necessarily sure about these internal dynamics. I like Dario Hunter and Howie Hawkins. I like the eco-socialist, but I think that Dario is very charismatic and he's like more policy-based. So I didn't know about that. That's something to consider. But one thing that I do want people to keep in mind, and this kind of piggybacks also off of the conversation that we were having, is that you can't, you always have to be the one who's leading as an individual, right? Because let's say, hypothetically speaking, 35 years down the line, we have ranked choice voting and a Green Party becomes viable. They start winning. They start taking power. The forces that we have in our system, capitalism, it will corrupt the Green Party eventually to where we'll have to fight them down the line.
You be watching my show and shit, dog? I'm dead ass. I just had that conversation like 2 days ago.
Did you really?
I swear to God. Because I'm just not I'm like, power vacuum, is a power vacuum. In other words, whoever fills that vacuum will become corrupted by the power. Just because the Green Party becomes viable, did we get rid of money in politics? Did lobbyists just disappear? Are corporations not a thing anymore?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's really important for people to see that, which is why I don't know how to wrap this in a package and sell it to people, right? How do you get them to realize that the institutions, we've and this is just Americans, I think, are just inherently institutionalists because this is kind of how we've grown up. Exactly. You have to move away from party politics. You're not going to be able to abandon electoral politics and party politics. That's not what I'm trying to communicate. But I think that if you put all of your stock in this, if you go all in, you will inevitably be disappointed. Because here's the thing, with the New Deal, that saved a generation. It basically saved capitalism from itself. But
really,
we're approaching 100 years later, and almost all of the New Deal has been undone. So this is why I've kind of
even the minimum wage. Even the fucking minimum wage, which was supposed to be the most common sense thing of the New Deal.
Yeah. I mean, this is my worry. It's if we don't change, how low do we go? Because each year that we don't raise the minimum wage federally, workers take another pay cut as inflation, increases. The cost of living rises, their purchasing power decreases. So it's how low are we going to go? How bad will the housing crisis get? And it's to a point to where I think we're reaching that breaking point if we're not already there with COVID-19 and whatnot. So we have to change the way that we do politics. Waiting for a hero and a savior has failed us. It's failed the left. So direct grassroots organizing is important, but that's acknowledging that this is an intersectional movement, for lack of a better word. People get on me because they think I'm an SJW. Maybe I am. But we have to acknowledge being a social
justice warrior as long as you're doing it for the right reasons. That's all I tell you.
Exactly. And you're not you're not trying to score political points. There are people in our movement who can't get out. Part of the reason why I was against the caucusing system, even if that's better for the left, is because people with disabilities who are in wheelchairs, they wouldn't be able to participate. So make sure that we include people who don't have the ability to leave their homes, have a really robust online organization, because that's
open source blockchain online voting.
You have to change the way that we do politics. You can't wait for someone to come along and save us. That's the main crux of it. But it's tough to I don't know how to sell that to people in terms of a concrete level. I think people get that instinctively, but it's well, what does that look like in practice? And that's why I come in and say, I don't know.
Listen, I've been thinking about this. We got to get a lot of shrooms. Okay, we got to hold a big ass Zoom meeting for everybody in the movement, and we just got to work this shit out, man. Just let's sit there, have a nice ass, but it can't be no little bullshit. We got to do the fifth. We got to do the whole fifth of the shrooms, okay? And I guarantee you that it will either be revealed to us or we'll have a really fucking good time. I haven't really figured out which one will happen yet. But listen, y'all, hear me out. I done did shrooms a few times now. Shit was the best shit I ever did before in my life, and I felt like I had a revelation upon revelation upon. I'm like, man, well, because you know the reason I say that though is there's really a point though. Seriously, we have to melt our egos. We have to get rid of it. And because people are like, they think kind of, which is once again by capitalism's true design. Well, shit, if I talk about this, I might not get as many clicks. If I talk about this, I might. But for you, if I recall, like your very first fame, like the major, like the thing that propelled you into YouTube stardom was that interview you did with that CIA, the former CIA asset, correct? I feel like you did you interviewed somebody from the CIA or former CIA or was intelligence?
I don't know. A young
lady or not, a lady? Like it was a minute ago. Like whoo,
I'm not sure.
Man. It was I distinctively remember watching. I'm like, man, how the fuck did he even get this interview? I don't even know who this guy is. And I just remember it was like it was before you had your new studio. It was a long time ago.
I'm blanking on it, but
I gotta see if I can find it now. I gotta see if I can. It was a big deal. It was a very big deal. But that also, you know what I'm saying? Like it kind of shows you how far we've come. I mean, look, when you were one of the very first ones, matter of fact, no, bullshit. You were the first one to bring me on to talk about the DNC fraud lawsuit. You're the very first one. For me, I got the platform that I got from covering on the ground election integrity issues. Like at some point, we got away from why we do this. Cause let's be real. Like we got bills to pay and everything in the back of our mind is shit. I got to make sure I can feed my family this month. And I got to make sure I'm helping the movement. And it's a very, very difficult line to toe. Like just keeping it real with the audience, y'all. We can all pretend to be high and mighty and all that shit. At the end of the day, we got families to feed too. And so the thing is, that's where the responsibility comes on us to just kind of be honest and put this stuff out. And we got to figure out a way to package this shit. We really do. That's our responsibility. Just like we were able to package the fuck out of these saviors that y'all love so much, we got to figure out a way to make y'all just as passionate about these issues. Now, here's the thing though. If we're going to, do what we do, then it's the responsibility of the audience, the organizers and the activists to be just as vigilant and dedicated to fighting for these issues. So then we can make our content match y'all issues and we can research in depth, not this person's policy, but okay, well, why hasn't this policy been passed yet? Okay, so in this country, how did they get it passed? What was the messaging? How did the messaging start? What is the organization in this country that even got this policy passed? Maybe we should consult with them and bring them on our show. Like those are the conversations we need to have. But on the other side of that fence, the audiences, y'all have to crave that. Y'all have to ask us for that. Y'all have to send us these links. Because we're not MSNBC. We're not even fucking TYT. We don't have researchers. It's us, sometimes our husbands and our wives, and you all who DM us. And when we, between making our shows, editing them, posting them, like has to be a team. Well, it has to be a movement. It has to be a movement.
Yeah, well put. Which is why, like, as we tell you about like holding politicians accountable, the same is true for us. Like, it's kind of like a chain of command in a way, and the very, very bottom are the ones with the most authority. Like, you have to hold people in the media accountable, every single one of us. Which is why, like, I try to, with the way I present information, is like I'll get out the facts of the story, and then I'll share my opinion. And, maybe I'm not always the best at doing this, but, just say this is me speculating or this is me like paraphrasing, because it's so difficult. And I think like it wasn't until I had like 25,000 subscribers or so to where I saw somebody parroting an argument that I made. And I knew that it was my argument because I hadn't seen anyone else. And then I realized, and it wasn't an incorrect argument, but it still scared me because it's like, wow, there's power, there's weight in my words now. And that's different because I was always just like, a dude who just likes to complain on the internet. So it's a lot of responsibility. So it's important for everyone to hold each other accountable. And, you can't, in the same way that I say, let's not rely on a hero. There's no hero in indie media. It's not me. It's not Niko House. This is all about you, like the direction of the movement, and this is why I say I'm kind of like riding the wave, it's going to be dictated by people who are on the ground, because at the end of the day, I care more about change than anything else, and the people who are going to get that change are the people who are on the ground, who are really organizing, putting in the time and the effort. So I think that, where the left goes, it's not going to be where we say it's going to go. It's going to be where the movement goes, because this is a people-powered movement, and it's always been that way. It's always been grassroots. Yeah. And, as long as, at the end of the day, we're fighting for the right policies and we're trying to genuinely get change that helps people and saves lives, I think that, we're good, and we have to acknowledge that people are going to make mistakes,
And I want to give y'all an example of how, so we are almost like, because we have it's like any good show, right? You kind of have a responsibility to give your audience what they want, right? You try to do it within the parameters of being a good progressive or a good activist, but we still are kind of like at the behest of our audience. Now, I think that you would probably agree, Bernie Sanders got fucking robbed. Like, the exit polls off, Pete Buttigieg gets to have a whole fucking app that his people created. Like, Pasta Fiorella discovered the oh God, what happened in California. I was there. It was disgusting. And the thing is, the truth of the matter is, this is where the problem lies. So Bernie was the voice of the movement at the time. And because of that, no one talked about election integrity to the degree that it should have been discussed. Now, people kind of had it in the back of their mind that it was here, that it was real. And hell, if you were there in 2016, then you definitely know it was a problem. But so we had the Securing America's Elections Act turned in, the bill Tulsi introduced in 2017 and 2020, but because Tulsi introduced it, it also wasn't discussed. And so we had a fundamental problem that we could have solved as a movement by saying, look, Bernie, we love you, but you got to talk about this, because this is going to affect you, which means it's going to affect all of us, which means, and if you're a Tulsi supporter, you're like, shit, it's going to affect Tulsi too, because if Tulsi can't get an image, our foreign policy is going to be we got to talk about this. But because we're at the behest of our audience. So if that's not the primary subject at the time, and nobody wants to create that angst, oh my God, maybe he might lose. You know what? Don't fucking matter if he loses. It don't matter if Tulsi loses. If we as a movement can't win when they win. Does that make sense? And so that's just one example of why we have to kind of, like you said, we have to be bottoms up. We have to be. If whatever your issue is, I know listen, Yang Gang, I know we kind of disagree about Yang a lot of times, but UBI is a real thing. And it's not libertarian. Maybe some people say Yang's UBI is libertarian. I'm not sure exactly how y'all define as libertarian. I just have a problem with the VAT tax in general. It just doesn't make any sense for our.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, it just never made. And plus, you would never get that shit through in that form anyway. But,
no diss to the Yang Gang.
Yeah. But on some real talk, they are very passionate and very educated about their UBI. And a lot of them, however, let's be honest, y'all were defending the VAT tax for the UBI and defending Yang instead of just saying, nah, look, I love you, Yang. I'm following you because of the UBI. But this whole shit about getting rid of the social safety nets, fuck that. Y'all had to say that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And guess what? And listen, he ended up moving left on that issue. After y'all interview, I watched that interview, and you were moving him on Medicare for all. And just by challenging him right then and there, you moved him on both the social safety nets and Medicare for all. Just like that. Now imagine if his whole damn movement was that passionate about it. Every day he's getting tagged, and it's cool if we support you. But look, bro, you're not about to slide on this shit. I don't care how much I like you. I will not vote for your ass. And we have to, we have to have that conviction. The first video that I actually did critiquing Tulsi when she announced was about her claim. She was calling Assad a war criminal, and she was kind of echoing those talking points. But it was because Meghan McCain and Anna Navarro bullied her to doing it. Man, I did a 20-minute video.
Oh, The View.
Yes.
I distinctly remember that. I'm pretty sure that I even talked about that because she was asked about Venezuela and why she didn't support the coup by Anna Navarro. And she's like, well, why didn't you support this? And I'm just like,
what? It's a coup, bitch. What the fuck you mean? But look, so and she knew I was one of her staunchest supporters. Her family, that was like my show's one of her favorite shows. And so if I'm criticizing you on this, she's like, it forced her to kind of take a step back and say, well, shit, maybe I do need to re-examine this. So I don't know if you know, but she eventually came out and she said, y'all, there's some OPCW reports leaks that we need to be looking at. I mean, as a congresswoman and as a person who used to be on the Foreign Affairs Committee, but at least on the Armed Services Committee, you're going to call somebody a war criminal. Oh, that damn evidence better be fucking, vacuum seal tight. It wasn't. And she ended up being on the right side of history there because the multiple OPCW leaks proved that was not the case. But the only reason she was on the right side of history was because the network that, let's be honest, we were, pushing her the hardest, right? We were the fanboys. We were like, okay, hold up, full stop really quick. Hold up, bring it back, Tulsi. We love you, but you can't do this. You can't. What it means, not just for you, like it's going to hurt your prospects. So I'm like, there are so many people reliant on your foreign policy message. They trust in your consistency there. You are undermining your own message by pushing propaganda that is not substantiated. We have to do this. Like, I don't like the fact that me and you had, we got some hot-ass debates over Medicare for all. I still don't like the fact that in that Senate version, which is unlike the House version, physicians could opt out of that of Medicare, the Medicare system. They can opt out in the Senate. But also it's because Amy Klobuchar was the one who helped primarily on that bill. And
Kirsten Gillibrand.
Kirsten
what she wrote was the 4-year transition, which I don't like the 4 years. I like the House version's 2 years. That's
Diapal's fucking bill was, man.
It's really good. Yeah,
it's
really good.
And it was the one that was more like Conyers, the one that was more like Kucinich and Gravel's. But we just, all of us, we just have to make it about these issues. We have to. If we're going to survive, quite literally.
Yeah, no, I think that you bring up a lot of like really good points. Like I can't speak to the election integrity in terms of like election fraud because I just don't know. I've seen basically like when it comes to the exit polls that they oversample young people, so that kind of makes them skewed in all circumstances. I don't know, but one thing in terms of like elections is I like electoral engineering. That's like something that I'm really passionate about. I studied that in school, and Yeah. I mean, I took a couple of classes on it. So basically like how you can get multiple parties. That's something that like I love that. It's super interesting because the way that you tweak the institutions, that really does lead to the number of parties that you have. So like part of my project is trying to get electoral reform and like the election securities. I think like, I like that bill from Tulsi. I think that basically every single election should be audited. Like that's you have to treat every election as if it's just simple. I mean, if you care about democracy, then you have to make sure that you are, rigorous. But for me, like my version of, not my version, but what I've been trying to promote is, I forgot the number. I think it's 3057, at least in the 2018 version. It is the Fair Elections Act. And what that does is it changes, it gets rid of gerrymandering. It changes every state to ranked choice voting. Whoa. And on top of that, it increases our district magnitude from 1 to either 2 or 3, depending on the district, which means that we don't just have one representative per district. We have 2 to 3, which means our system is a lot more proportional. And so that's been kind of like my project that I've been trying to push. And I actually went to my representative's town hall, Suzanne Bonamici, and I asked her, will you co-sponsor this bill? And her aide, she said, here, write it down and then we'll look into it. And she never did. And that's part of the reason why now I'm so frustrated with all these corporate Democrats who are like vote shaming, because we've been fighting for ranked choice voting. It's the Green Party who fights for ranked choice voting. But like to get to your point about like getting our audiences to hold us accountable and whatnot, it is tough because if I do talk about electoral engineering, it isn't going to be as watched, as popular as if I talk about like some political drama or something. And, it's fun. Like we've got to have the junk food. Like I want to shit on neoliberals as much as everyone. But it is important that like our audiences hold us accountable and demand, that we cover things that are important to them, because it's like we kind of like it's so easy because like even though there's a lot of people in indie media, like for me, I'm in my own bubble. Like I stay focused on like my set of issues. So like it's really important that the audiences like tell us, hey, I would love for you to talk about this issue because this matters to me.
It's hard to find time to go into other people's bubbles. So
I don't know what anyone is talking about nowadays because I can't like first of all, I try not to watch other indie media, and that's not a diss. It's because I don't want my opinion to be influenced by everyone else, because I don't want to just regurgitate the same stuff I hear. But it is hard to like get out of your own subjective perspective and, you know, get out of that bubble. So that's why, like, I'm glad you made the point about audiences like really stepping up and, you know, letting us know. And we need some way to communicate that better. For me, Twitter is the easiest, but it's, you know, we need to hear from the audiences, and we need them to hold us accountable. You know,
so for about a good 3 years, I refused to watch anyone else's show. I mean, it would be seldom, like maybe if it was like, believe it or not, I would still share people's shows. I'm very big on cross promotion. But I just didn't watch it for the same reason though. But then I stopped doing it. I'm like, why wouldn't I want my opinion to potentially be influenced by somebody that their fucking opinion is right? Like I don't have all the answers. I just don't. I cannot. So I started watching. I watched one of Kyle's shows on reparations, right? And for everybody, by now, y'all know me and Kyle are friends, but I did a video actually responding to Kyle on that issue. And it was basically, if I didn't watch that video like I had always done, he would have never actually moved on that, because basically he was kind of defending Bernie for not defending reparations. And I'm like, fundamentally, Kyle, you can't be against this just because it's not strategic at the time, because last time I checked, Medicare for All wasn't strategic. Yeah. It was at 30. It was at one point it was lower than reparations, which is kind of crazy to say, but it was, because everybody thought of it as socialism, basically. Right. And so what Bernie did was to use his platform to actually educate people and make people believe that we deserve this. And yeah, you can make the argument, which may be a good argument, that, oh, well, this is everybody, but it's different. But I'm thinking like a society can be measured of how it treats its most vulnerable, right? So if you ask me, do you believe in reparations for Black people? Absolutely. Do you believe in reparations for Native Americans? They deserve more. That's what I'll tell you every single time. And that is non-negotiable. Not Native Americans. They should have had reparations. And if they get their reparations first, I would clap my hands. And why? Because if our society is compassionate enough to treat them that way, I know I'll get my turn. We'll be all right. But guess what? It also makes sure that we do not allow our institutions to treat anybody else like that in the future. We begin to breed that culture of consciousness. Oh, I do want to say, by the way, that bill that you were talking about, 1640, it was introduced by Richard Durbin. Is he still in the Senate? Did he get kicked out for introducing that?
I don't know. I know it should be co-sponsored by Ro Khanna, and I'm blanking on the other person.
Booker co-sponsored this.
Cory Booker did? Oh, see, I was thinking of a House version. I didn't know that there was a companion bill in the Senate.
Oh.
Which is kind of encouraging.
Are you sure you're not talking about Tulsi's bill?
No, this is the Fair Representation Act. Let me see.
I don't know if it was representation. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was reintroduced in this latest session. But hang on, I'll check on that. We'll come back to reparations.
Beyer Jr.?
Yeah, that's the one by Byers.
Okay, got you.
I don't know what the number is.
It's HR 3057. You're correct.
Oh, okay. So
man, how did this not get? See this because a lot of people don't know who the hell Beyer is, and he's not grandstanding anywhere.
And it has 5 co-sponsors. Like I feel like that's criminal. Like this is kind of like my passion project. Like you have like the Election Security Act from Tulsi. Like this was mine because it's like everyone is complaining about having only these 2 shitty parties, and this is like our ticket to like better parties. Like you still have to get rid of capitalism because you're going to corrupt whatever parties we have. But I mean, it's a really great start. But
you know what's interesting? It looks like the Senate did to him what they did to Tulsi, which is they introduced a bullshit version of that one so that you didn't actually have to focus on it. You could because Amy Klobuchar did that to Tulsi. Literally, it's fucked up. While she was in Miami, they introduced the securing. It was called the SAFE Act as well. Mm-hmm. And it looked like skeletally like the exact same legislation, except for just a bunch of pork barrel, and it created a monopoly.
I remember you tweeted about this, and you know what? Bullshit. I brought up. I think it was. I can't remember. It was knee deep, in, not to rehash this bullshit, but the Mueller investigation, where I think I brought up. I can't remember the specific video, but I brought up that bill. I'm like, why aren't people co-sponsoring this bill? Because this literally would protect from any meddling, not just from like Russia, but any country whatsoever.
Any country.
It doesn't like securing democracy. That's such an easy thing. Like it does. Like it's. it's politically expedient to do it. There's no like risk in
There's no downside
that, you know? So it's like, but for me, I won't lie. The Fair Representation Act, I kind of take that like as a personal failure because I really went to bat for Medicare for all. Like we spent all of 2017 on my show harassing politicians. I won't use the word harass because I don't want.
I know, God. You didn't hear that, YouTube. We were not harassing anybody. Don't ban us, please.
But we made so many calls. Like we thousands of calls to certain representatives who we targeted, and we got a majority of Democrats to co-sponsor that. So I feel like I just didn't go hard enough on that. But I want to get back to your point about reparations, because that was one of my biggest disagreements with Bernie Sanders, because I've been a supporter of reparations, and I think that over this last, like 2019, my stance on that has hardened more to where it's become like one of the top issues, because it was like, I went beyond just being like, oh, I'm a white ally, of course I support reparations, to like really understanding fundamentally like how it's so outrageous that this hasn't been paid. But when this came up for Bernie at the town hall, I was a little bit irritated that there were a lot of people on Twitter that were blaming the person who asked the question, when for me, I felt irritated because I thought that Bernie needed a better response because he knew this was coming up. And so I actually got criticism.
And he has Nina and Killer Mike and Cornel West on his team.
Yeah, I got criticized for attacking Bernie, but I think it goes back to your point. Like, if you are criticizing someone and you're like perceived to be like the biggest fan, it means more. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I don't think Bernie saw my criticism, but like it means that like I'm genuine. Like, I have nothing to lose. Like, I support Bernie, so if I'm criticizing him, it's from a genuinely good place, and that's like. Irrespective of what I think the political calculation should be, because you can separate, like, is this good politically? I think it would be good politically. I think it would actually have benefited him. But I mean, like, there is a difference, you know, and that's why I think it's really important to hold people accountable. And we kind of keep circling back to the same theme, but I think it's so important. Like, hold people accountable, hold us accountable. You know, this is a people-powered movement. It's not like we're getting like commands from our overlords to tell you what we're told to say. Like, we're just human beings, and sometimes we're gonna fuck up. Sometimes we're gonna do a great job, but at the end of the day, we're driven towards that goal, you know, of helping people, and that's what people have to remember. You know,
all are our overlords.
Exactly.
And I'm guilty of, even if it's like inadvertently, I'm guilty of sometimes like taking my audience's opinion too much into consideration. When I be honest with y'all, like, y'all motherfuckers don't know what the fuck y'all talking about. Be real with you. Y'all saw somebody else said the shit and y'all said it in the comment section. I go to look at Jimmy's. I'm like, this motherfucker got this shit from Jimmy's comment section. Ain't this about a bitch? I believed in you. Okay. But in all seriousness, we got like, y'all believe that we have responsibility to you, and we do. But in the same token, y'all have a responsibility to us. You can't complain if, well, what do we? Because I see, and honestly, it's kind of like a little bit overwhelming sometimes. But I understand. They say, well, what do we do now? What do we do? What do we do? I get tagged hundreds of times a day asking that question, and I'm like, I don't know. What do we do? Don't look for me for the answers. I just want to help tell everybody about the great answers that y'all got and the great fights that y'all are fighting and the movements the organizations that are being formed. I want to bring y'all on the show so the people can tell the people what's next. Because it's cool. I'm an activist and I am an organizer, but at the end of the day, it's like, there's just, in history has proven this. There's no movement that is more successful than a focused and decentralized movement that is based strictly off the people. The Black Panthers were so successful. People always think the Black Panthers, they think about Black people, but that's not what the movement was, believe it or not. It was a truly intersectional movement. And there were white leaders in the Black Panthers. I don't know if y'all know that, but that's a fact. There were white leaders in the Black Panthers. Obviously, there were Black leaders in the Black Panthers. And they believed in the Second Amendment. But they also didn't believe in just running up and shooting Black people in the street for no reason, like, you know, if you're a cop. But they also were, I think they believed in single payer health care. They were also anti-imperialists. They were also, you know what I'm saying? They weren't saying, don't go vote. Fuck that. They were saying, your vote is power, and remember that. But at the end of the day, these issues are the issues, irrespective of whatever party you belong to. That was with Martin Luther King too. I think he was a Republican at the time, a registered Republican, because the lines were still a little blurred back then.
Yeah, I think that was before realignment, I want to say.
Yeah, like the fifth realignment or whatever the fuck it was. But he was a fucking socialist, and he was an anti-imperialist. And yeah, he might have been conservative. Like, if to be honest with you, I know people don't want to like deal with this, but it's reality. He was still a reverend. Like, he might have been personally, not necessarily for marriage equality. It's a good chance that he wasn't, but he never said that shit. Why? Because because the way I was raised is irrelevant when it comes to this movement, and that is what has to happen. Like, across the board, whatever not whatever I believe in, but whatever predisposed or preconceived biases I have against these dumbass tit for tat, like moral high ground issues, like, is it better for the majority or is it not? Those are the only questions we have to ask. Like, even reparations, like I said, it's better for the majority because if our society can't even, we can't even acknowledge chattel slavery. We can't even pay a debt in any other situation, bro. In any other situation. If you win a lawsuit, matter of fact, let's just use Martin Luther King, for example. Martin Luther King family won a lawsuit for him postpartum. Now, granted, the restitution was only like $200, but it was more so the point. But they paid out the restitution posthumously to Martin Luther King's family. How the hell is that different from slavery? How is that different from reparations?
Yeah. Yeah, that when you hear it in legal terms, it makes so much sense because, like, for me, I was thinking about, like, when my dad was alive, he got a payment from an uncle that he never met, who we didn't know, owned land in Hawaii. It was like 5 acres, and it wasn't very much. But, thinking about it in that terms, it's like, well, people use the argument, well, wait, no slaves are alive today. And, so that doesn't, but I'm like, but it's a legal, like, it's owed, legal thing. Like, it's legally owed. Like, that's the thing. Yeah, I forgot. I was going to piggyback off of another point that you made, but I kind of forgot. But it was a really good point, I swear.
Was it about the election integrity legislation?
No.
You were talking about how the ranked choice voting? Is that what you're talking about?
No, it was off your separate vote. Oh, no. It wasn't a point I was going to make. I was going to tell you, I'm glad that you brought up the Black Panthers because that's kind of like inspired me a little bit more in terms of like going forward. Like, I just started reading The Assassination of Fred Hampton, and I only made it
to read that. People have been telling me to read it.
I only made it through the introduction, so I haven't even gotten to like. Actually, I'm a little bit into the first chapter, but I kind of like I put it down and I haven't came back to it yet. But like, here's one thing that I'm trying to be. I going forward, I'm trying to be more historical because I think that like so many people that were alive before us, like they got solutions implemented, and we need to look back to them. And I would recommend a book to everyone from Professor Harvey J. Kaye. It's called Make America Radical Again. And he explains how, it's not necessarily super important for us to talk about, we're not scary socialists like Cuba or Venezuela. We're like, Scandinavia. Like, America has a history of being radical, and like everything that we're fighting for, it's all grounded in history. Like, Medicare for All is not new. Like, there's been anti-war movements, throughout history, prominent, Vietnam, like my parents were against that. You know what I mean? So it's like, we can just look backwards. And I think that is kind of like the guiding star for us. That sounds corny, but like,
it's true.
Understand what I'm saying? Like, it's,
that's my whole show, man. I try to look at political history. Like, I tell people about, I tell people like the importance of the vice presidential pick. Because back in the day, everybody, we could just put Elizabeth Warren as the VP. And I was like, that is the dumbest shit I have ever heard before in my life. Are you out of your fucking mind? They're like, what? No, but it's cool as long as we get the presidency. I'm like, so you clearly don't know the history of FDR and Henry Wallace. And it's because we're not taught that. But like, and it's not just FDR and Henry Wallace. Almost at every pivotal point in history, like, they make sure that the VP is who they choose. And there's a reason for that. Because of Henry Wallace and FDR, that situation where basically they, Henry Wallace was FDR's VP for 3 terms. And then they did the Democratic Party, the conservative wing of the Democratic Party, and even some of the Republicans really established a coup to overthrow Henry Wallace at the last convention in his 4th term when everybody knew FDR was the sickest and on his way out, unfortunately. And they knew that, oh God, if we get Henry Wallace in, the world is never going to be the same, but it will be for the better, obviously. So we have to get somebody who's an idiot who we can control. So we get Truman. You know what happens because of Truman? 2 goddamn atomic bombs drop. The Cold War starts because Winston Churchill lied to Truman, and so did one of the Dulles brothers. I can't remember which Dulles brother it was. But they said, we never signed that Yalta agreement. Stalin was lying to you. And so we start the Cold War because of it, which bled into Vietnam, Korea, Cambodia, and Laos, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran. I mean, the list does go on because of a VP pick.
Yeah,
That's what history can teach you.
Yeah, it's really important that we don't kind of feel like we're paving new ground, because I mean, in a way we are, but this is like, we're continuing the fights. We're just the next generation in this, and there's a generation after us, Zoomers, you know what I mean? So it's like, we're just continuing what was already started since the founding of this country. And I feel like, you know, if you kind of put things into a historical perspective, it makes us feel better about our situation. Like, to think that women couldn't vote until 1920, was it? Like, that's insane. Loving v. Virginia, you know, what made interracial marriage legal wasn't a thing until 1968. Like, our parents, most of them were alive for that. Like, there were so many like horrible injustices in this country, and they're just continuing. They're not necessarily new. The only newer one, arguably, is climate change. But it's like, we're not.
But even that.
it's been around, so it's not like we're paving new ground. We're following in the footsteps of former leaders, and I think that that's really reassuring to think about it like in those terms. And you know, maybe we have a different leader that we look to. Like, you brought up MLK and whatnot. Like, I reread. I didn't reread Marx. I read Professor Richard Wolff's quick analysis of Marx, and it's just such an easy, quick read. I read it in one night, and you know, it's a little uncomfortable to know that Marx was probably homophobic, but I could read other arguments from Marx, and like, you can kind of extrapolate and understand, like, using his logic to get to a point where, you know, there needs to be what's the word I'm looking for in terms of like social justice, like liberation, you know, using his own arguments. Which is why it doesn't.
Which is funny, right? Well, that goes the issue that nobody puts Marx on a pedestal while explaining Marxism.
Yeah,
and that's where we have to be. That's the mindset of the left. We can't put people. MLK has been put on a pedestal, but I know it's gonna sound crazy, y'all. It actually hurt his message. Because, in my opinion, that was done on purpose, right? The reason they gave him all these schools and all this bullshit, like, because if they idolize, he was all about peace. It's all about peace. You know, he wasn't a revolutionary. He just was about holding. No, MLK was in these streets, especially by that last, you know, year or so of his life. Him and Malcolm X is damn near on the same page, and they don't talk about the fact that Martin Luther King was an anti-imperialist. The government likes to prop him up now. They gave us MLK Day, so we never talked about the fact that them motherfuckers were spying on him, calling him a communist, but not in a good way, not in one of those good old fuzzy socialist way. It was he's conspiring with Russia, and the entire black movement is conspiring with Russia. So they co-opted his brand and watered down his message. But I feel like now people are beginning to wake up again to his true message. But that's what we need across the board. We can't let them MLK people's message. Even with Bernie, Bernie's message is clearly more radical than Bernie is. Tulsi's message was more anti-imperialist than Tulsi is. Good. Use it. You don't have to put them on a pedestal and you know, to push their message and put that message on a pedestal, because their messages, in my opinion, are just as salient as, you know, Marx's might have been, even if he is homophobic or may have been racist.
It's important to like use other people's ideas as a jumping off point for yourself, and that's true for like indie media. Like, don't just say, oh well, Mike said this, so it's true. Like, use it as a jumping off point. Like, for me, I spent like a good amount of not a good amount, like, it bothered me a lot to, on one hand, idolize the reforms that FDR implemented, but know that he is the one who did Japanese internment during World War II, and the Supreme Court said that's A-okay. You know, so it's like we have to be nuanced and acknowledge that what FDR probably stood for, I could take the values and use that as a jumping off point for myself. And maybe he wasn't living up to his own principles, because at the end of the day, like, people, we're not, like, as much as we want to be super like 100% consistent, we're not. We're struggling with like subjectivity and, you know, competing ideals, you know, not to get too philosophical, but we're questioning what is the ultimate good, you know? So we have to develop our own political identities, and it's okay to be influenced by people to an extent, but never doubt yourself. Like, acknowledge that at the end of the day, you know, you are your own political entity, and, you know, you have to develop your own political views and ideology, and not solely base it off of one person, because if you do that, you're kind of setting yourself up for disappointment, because people are people.
And I'm gonna let you have the last word on that one. I think I couldn't say it better myself, man. I appreciate you coming back on to the show. For everybody who, if you've been living under a rock, you don't know who Mike is, you can follow him at The Humanist Report on Twitter and on YouTube. I just talked to Mike about coming to Rockfin, peeps. He said he might be on his way now. He said he might be on his way. Look, they would love to have you, man. And I've noticed on Rockfin, a lot of people who have begun to kind of make that shift. And I think, believe it or not, leaving that YouTube fucking bubble is very cathartic. It really is. It makes you remember that you're not actually crazy. And that a lot of people on fucking YouTube are crazy because people are just trying to get their comment liked. They're just trying to, it's crazy. I kind of forget sometimes that like people they comment and respond and tweet at us to try and get a response out of us so they can say they got a response out of us. I forget that shit sometimes. But, it's the messages that you heard here today, guys. This is genuinely how we feel. And a lot of times it's kind of how we always felt, but we get lost in the sauce. We are human beings just like you. We just got lucky. We've been privileged enough to, for life to align the way that we can just be a voice that is hopefully only reflective of the movement. That's what our goal is. But like I said, you all get lost around. So I urge you all before we go, you got any grudges with anybody that you were organizing? I'm not talking about disingenuous, like opportunists. That's a different discussion for a different day. But people that you just genuinely had disagreements with. And that happens a lot, especially when you're as passionate as we are about these issues and the world's at stake. I urge you all to go out and reach out to them, like Mike reached out to me, and make up with them, organize with them. You don't got to agree all the time. But find that one issue y'all do agree on and fight like hell to get it passed, okay? And for everybody else, always remember more than anything else, people, find your balance. Peace.